Hey, Bianca.
I was like, I love how I was like, I don't even know what that was.
You got to center yourself before coming out to the people.
That is true. Okay, center. I have a voice this week. It feels great
Yay.
to have a voice.
Great. I mean, how did this hurt your ASMR career? Like, was it
You
you had to put that on
know,
hold for a little while,
it
or was it like a
it
special brand of
I think
that?
I think it adds a different touch because people are used to like a very high pitched, energetic, and it's like my voice is like no. So we had a moment. We're recouping. Today's delicacies. So I have a little. Okay, I'm a little bouge. I feel like I like to have my
You like
blueberries
to have
in a
your
glass.
blueberries in a glass, yeah. I
In a
can't do
glass.
that with a child. You can't put things in glass because that's just a recipe for disaster. But
These are good
always have
valid
blueberries.
points. These are
Yeah.
good valid points. I have like a blueberry, but then I add a little honey. Thank you, RJ. Add a little honey for some pizzazz because it's like, who wants to eat just regular blueberries? I don't.
I
But
do. Is it unpopular that I just like blueberries? They're just good.
I mean, I guess so. I just it needs a little
I feel
okay.
like, did you ever do this thing as a kid? We used to have these shakers full of like cinnamon sugar, and you would like dump them on strawberries.
So with the strawberries, I used to wait until like some chocolate melted and then I would just like add it to the mix. But yeah, I feel like fruit. And then that really set me up for like, the I call it the fruit and chocolate bars growing up, so it's just, it's where it all started from childhood, fruit and sugar.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We're like,
what's going?
yeah. The move is now to like not do that for children so that they get used to just eating normal fruit and not like adding sugar to fruit. Like I remember like also as a kid, like you'd cut a grapefruit in half and then just like dump a pile of sugar on top of it. Yeah.
That was fun. That was fun. I will say my mom, when she was trying to get me, like if I was feeling under the weather, she would add salt to the grapefruit.
That's a good idea.
It was like a, I don't know, some health things. But yeah, I'm very excited. So today we have a guest, but even before we get to the guest, so many like changes. Y'all don't see this, but we made some changes on our back end. So I feel like that's kind of cool,
Yeah, but actually they maybe did see it. So we're like last week we did it in StreamYard and we tried StreamYard out. And then in that process, our producer Chef Brent found this other platform called EVMux, and yesterday he was on stream building out the stream that we're using today. So if you want, you can go back and see how he did it. But we're using something called EVMux, which is why we have the drop game back, because really that's all that matters. Whether or not we got some
it's really. I think what was really cool though, which is like in real time, because we literally found EVMux on stream last time. So I thought that was kind of cool that like during our just perusing. So I feel like y'all are learning in real time with us. Like we're figuring it out in real time and we're like, all right, join us for the fun.
So yeah, it's a little different on our end, but this looks a lot better. I actually like this setup, even the back end that we're seeing, which y'all can't see, a little bit better than StreamYard. So well, hopefully this one works, and then we can eventually let our joyful Chef Brent take a vacation at some point. Like that's the goal, right?
I mean, I guess. I guess that was no. Chef Brent might be taking like tours. Chef Brent is going to be famous. He's internal famous. He's on podcasts. Well, not non-public podcasts. Yeah. So then is he really going to be
podcast that the CEO does with a few people, and I think it's like I want to say 4th episode.
Yeah,
in there.
top 10.
Yeah. I actually, Bianca and I were in a meeting this morning, and all of a sudden I froze up. I was like, "What?" And it's because I got an email saying that Brent was on the show.
Brent is truly. Brent is
He's also
Twilio
been here for like 10 years.
That's true too. That's real. So. I love how every stream we have a Brent segment. I promise he doesn't pay us to have a segment.
He kind of does pay us. He makes this stream happen. Like he pays us in his time and energy. This is okay. This is non-trivial. This is real.
That's real. But we promise. This is just genuine Brent enthusiasm. Just like, because I realized over time, I was like, I feel like we probably have a Brent segment like every like like every stream.
Yeah.
We promise.
Just wait until he's not producing and we're producing it ourselves, and then you'll get the real Brent segment.
It'll be, there's a little drama.
We have a really exciting guest today. I'm personally very excited for this one. The first time that DevNet all got together since I joined was, I guess, a year and a half ago in May, and I had the pleasure of sitting next to this person at the table and like really getting to know them, and it was super cool. And the stuff that they do at Twilio, which you're all going to learn more about, is just it's that stuff that like a lot of times companies don't do well, or like it kind of gets lost in the fold. And I'll just tell you, for the suspense, it's Tierney. And Tierney does a lot of things, but he manages our open source and how we write code that's open source. And he also does a lot of stuff with taking in feedback from our customers and developers, and they do a lot more of figuring out how to do that with, yes, they use they, them pronouns. That is correct. I'm sorry about that. They do a lot of stuff helping get the word out for how people are interacting with Twilio. So super happy to have them on board and have them come and join us for this stream. So welcome, Tierney.
Hello.
There you go. I was still muted in the system.
Yeah.
All right.
Look at that official podcasting mic. You
yes,
got it.
And the headphones. So again, like, if you were to introduce yourself, Tierney, like what? Yeah, Tierney, how would you introduce yourself to the people?
Okay, but where am I introducing myself? Like, what's the venue? Is it right? Is it just a Twitch stream? Am I like at work? Am I meeting a customer?
We're on a Twitch stream.
Okay, yeah, if we're
just the Twitch stream. Okay.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Give the people, if you're giving folks your Twitch stream intro, and then you can give them your Twilio intro afterwards.
My Twitch stream intro. I am a JavaScript person. I've done a ton of JavaScript over the last like 10 years. It's been a ton around open source and community building, and mostly focusing on communities and developer advocacy. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Let's see. Cool. All right, so I guess super excited to have you on stream. I feel like you've done a lot of stuff in the kind of open source space. So Alex and I will have a few questions to give you. We could start off. Alex, like you can kick off, or I can kick off. Okay, cool.
I want to figure out where to start. Did your career journey and your tech journey start with open source, or did you get into open source a little bit later?
So my tech journey started with RuneScape. I was making forums. We don't need to talk about the RuneScape forums that I was making, because they definitely were above board and definitely weren't for private servers. I was making forums for communities and like just doing a bunch of community building. And then I kind of got more interested in the forum software than I was in the RuneScape stuff. And so I got really active in a specific forum, MyBB. That was just like, at the time I kind of went through like PHP, BB, MyBB, and a bunch of others. And like MyBB seemed to be like the one that was like coolest and kind of most modern. It turns out forum systems, like open source forum systems, move really slow. Like I was there doing MyBB when Zenfurrow, gosh, I have to pull that one out of the depths of my brain. When Zenfurrow started, which was like a fork of vBulletin, and those are both paid ones, and you have to pay like $100 a year for a license. And I'm 16, I'm not paying for a license. So I was doing forum stuff and got really involved in like providing support for people who were doing forums, and actually got told I was like really enjoying doing the support, and was told like, do not go, like, I was like, how do I do support as a career? And I was like told basically go down the path of software engineering rather than support, just because it like ends up being more close to the project. And so super close to the project. Spent a ton of time there. Started a few different forums myself. Some were successful, some were not. Some were very empty. And then kind of got a little bit tired of that space. It just, the velocity of the project was pretty slow at the time. This was, I joined in 1.4, 1.6 launched, and then I was waiting for 1.8 for like 2 years. It never got there. I think it only launched like 2 years ago, and this was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So yeah, did a bunch of forum stuff, and then eventually found, I was like, okay, cool, I kind of want to go do some JavaScript stuff. This seems like the part of tech that I'm interested in. And so I went and looked around at a bunch of open source projects. I looked at like NodeBB, which looked really cool, but it was like a little bit too, it just wasn't quite what I wanted to work on. And then that happened to be the moment that IOJS forked out of Node. And so IOJS was a fork in, I think, 2015, Thanksgiving 2015. That fork was basically the community saying, hey, Joyent, company that owns this project, we're not actually happy with the direction of this. We're going to take it and move it forward. And then within 6 months, actually that would have been Thanksgiving 2014, within 6 months into 2015, they remerged, and it became Node.js as it is today for the most part. And I was involved throughout that. Michael Rogers, who one of my first mentors in tech, he had put out a blog post saying like, hey, we just need people to like do non-technical content. We need people to do technical stuff. And so I was like, I can definitely write a blog post for this project. So I came in, did a bunch of like evangelism work, actually spun up the evangelism working group in Node. And then from there had like led community efforts in the project for years and years. So
I have
that was a lot.
many questions. That was a lot.
Yeah.
But here's something that I've dealt with. So it sounds like, you really like learned how to code and like do all that stuff on your own, contributing to these open source projects, right?
Yep.
I've seen, so my journey with open source is not that awesome. But I did some stuff with the robot operating system and some frameworks within that. Mostly where I used to work at a company that managed a robotic arm manipulation tool. And it was really hard to get new people to contribute. The amount of effort that we put into like getting people to figure it out. And it also might've been that it's all written in C++ and Python, and it's hard, and it's robotics, and it's a lot. How did you strike that balance of getting started and like figuring things out without like, did you said you had some tech mentors, like, did you lean on some of these tech mentors? Did you kind of just figure it out yourself? Like, how did you kind of like do that? And I want to almost frame it in a way of like, if somebody was taking a similar path of like using open source as the way that they're gonna kind of jump in and learn. Yeah. What are your thoughts there? Yeah,
so I have a lot. One, if you're going to try to jump into tech with open source, go to the biggest project possible, and then go to the repos that are not the main repo. This is a lesson that I like accidentally did. So I went, rather than going to like Node.js or I guess at the time it would have been official, or it would have been like IOJS/io.js. I think would have been the repo on GitHub. And now it has been remerged into Node, so it doesn't exist. Rather than going to that main repo for the main project, I went to the website. So I went to like IOJS/website. And then that's where I started contributing, because there was like, a bunch of markdown in there, and I can edit text. Like I can figure out how to write markdown pretty easily. And so starting in that like orbital thing is actually probably like one of the best recommendations I can give anyone looking to get into open source, whether you're experienced or not, because very frequently the core project is completely saturated. Every hard or every easy issue is taken. Every easy thing that you can add is usually taken. I think over time, there's like spurts where there might be, a new feature added, and then there's a bunch of small things that you can add to that feature. But generally, all of the things that orbit that like central repository are actually pretty understaffed, because everyone cares about the main thing and not all of the tools and the like supplementary stuff that supports it. So, an example, I also work on Electron. I've worked on NPM. An example with Electron that I just adore deeply, deeply, deeply is Electron has a tool called docs parser. It's not documented, or it's like very, very low documentation about it. But what this tool does is it goes through and reads all of the markdown from the docs, creates an AST, so an abstract syntax tree. I always get abstract wrong, like in pronunciation. So it creates an AST of the docs, which is like an AST is what something like a tool like Babel would do for JavaScript, where it's like taking one form of JavaScript and then creating another form of JavaScript with that original, with the same functionality as the original input. And then it saves that AST, and then we can do a bunch of cool processing on that AST of the documentation that then allows us to do like type checking on the documentation. So any change in Electron has to go in the docs first. Otherwise, a check will fail on the main repo, because there's no types for that new API that you're adding, and the types are validated against the core project. So that's like really abstract tooling, but it's really cool and really functional, and it's the way a team of 13 people is able to manage Chromium and Node and adding new features on top of that together. Going to those orbital repos.
An undocumented doc parser.
Exactly. But yeah, going to all those orbital repos is really valuable.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. And honestly, that's kind of what I did in the robotics stuff, because I wasn't good enough to contribute to the actual like C++ robotics code. So I would work on documentation, and I would work on tutorials. And like, those are great ways to learn what's going on with the code and still give back. I think there's definitely a balance there that like, I've also seen some maintainers complain about people who just make these like little tiny nitpicky PRs that they then need to go review. So like, there's definitely a balance there, but
I mean, my first PR in the website repo, I will remember this because this has been in a number of my talks, but my first PR in that website repo was a markdown PR to the main README in the Node.js website, or the IOJS website, that did it. I was adding links, but I added them like totally incorrectly. So that PR was like rejected by someone who immediately, like as soon as I got hired from doing that evangelism work, basically, they were my coworker. So like my first PR was immediately rejected by someone who immediately became my coworker. So yeah, shout out Fishhawk123.
And that's how you got your job in tech, though, is you were just contributing, and you were in the community, and you got hired to do Node stuff.
Yeah, I was definitely very much right place, right time. Like, I do not think that is very repeatable. But
you're like, don't try this again.
Yeah, I mean, like, please try. I hope you get it. But it does not work out like that for most people. I'm very thankful that it did work out like that for me, but I am also very honest that like I've been right place, right time multiple times. So yeah.
I guess the one of the questions I have for you, because it's like, I think for a lot of folks, being a healthy part of the community, right, like was probably a learned thing. So I guess for you, because not everyone wants to be a maintainer, right? But some folks are just like, I just want to contribute. But like, how did you kind of push yourself to evolve within the community, right? Instead of just like, oh, all right, how did you think about like your progression and like maybe pushing yourself and like to take on more versus not? So yeah, kind of curious about that.
Yeah, I think it did flow a little bit naturally of like I really enjoyed doing the like documentation and social. Like I'm still like one of 3 people who have the access to the official IOJS account on Twitter, and I only have it granted to my like real Twitter account through TweetDeck, like their permissions model. So like when that's gone, that account might actually just be gone. But yeah, like I just enjoyed all of the parts of kind of what I was doing, and so it felt pretty natural for me to go like, oh, I'm doing too much in this repo, and I'm like distracting the other people doing like what building the website. Let me go and make this like a space for that, like per how the project says you can do that, and like with the encouragement of the people above me. And I think that was the big thing, is like, and that's what I tried to do now, honestly, mostly in Node, is rather than like spending a ton of time on the project, I am still a face that people encounter at some point in their like beginning to engage with the project. And so I try to mostly like guide people in the right direction. And that, I mean, there's multiple people on the project that I'm so thankful for right now. Yagiz is one of them, who's done a ton of performance work, like that low level C++ work. Who's Yagiz is great, and I've been able to help kind of mentor him into the project. And then and I mean, now he's like off on, he's a TSC member, like he's in. I no credit for anything in the past like 7, 8, 9, 10 months. But and then another one is Claudio, who's doing a bunch of like redesign, website redesign and documentation work. Both really great people, really good contributors, and just needed like a push in the right direction. And I think that, or just like, had a question of like, hey, how do I participate? I think genuinely asking that question to people in project leadership or people who are involved is probably the best way that you can like actually approach getting involved in open source at scale and doing a bunch of things. And they will tell you things that like you don't know exist and need help, or they have their own list of like, oh god, I need to do this, but there's like a million other things, I just don't have time, I'll get to it eventually, but you could take it on right now. And that's, I mean, if you're showing up saying, hey, I want to do work, how do I do work, usually people will be like, here's work for you, please take it. So yeah,
I think you kind of answered the question I was just thinking of. But how do you go about deciding if you're gonna like put in, because like mentoring takes energy, like how do you go about deciding if you're gonna put in some energy to try to mentor somebody, and what are you looking for in that relationship, or for someone to bring to the table for you to like be like, yeah, this is worth putting a little energy into?
I mean, honestly, it's like there's been a bunch of people I have mentored who haven't kind of continued investing their time in the project, and that's super fine. But usually it's just, do I think that this person will like continue? And if they will, like, I'm happy to give them my time, even if I don't really have that time. I'm still happy to try to like carve out time and answer them and find ways to support them. And like, if I really don't have time, being like, hey, go talk to James, or go talk to Mateo, or go talk to someone else, right? Like, go talk like this person, or even like, I don't know anything about HTTP in the sense of like how it's implemented in Node Core, and that is for Yagiz, that's like a big thing. Like, Yagiz built a new C++ library that like a bunch of projects are now adopting because it's really fast. It's called Ada after his daughter, which is very sweet. Yeah, it's really nice. But yeah, like I don't know anything about that, but I know like James Snell does know stuff about that, and so pointing Yagiz to James of like, hey, this is someone who could probably help you. It takes like 10 seconds. It's not hard for me to respond to that, and I think that's like, it's always a measure of like, how much time do I have, how much energy do I have, and how much is this going to cost? And if it's low, which usually it is, unless it's like we're pairing for 5 hours or meeting up at a coffee shop and pairing or something like that, like I can usually take something on. So yeah, but that's also definitely unique to me, and I don't know if everyone else approaches mentorship that way.
Have you recently paired with somebody for 5 hours? That sounds like a lot.
No, I haven't, okay. But I have in the past. Also, I mean, genuinely another thing that a lot of bigger projects do, and again, this is mostly me talking about bigger projects. bigger projects very frequently have, well, not very frequently, but at least once a year, usually have some kind of summit. So I believe the next Node one is happening attached to NodeConf EU in Ireland, and then Electron is having one here in next week. So like I'm out of office next week doing that.
Nice.
Yeah, and so like going to that, like where it makes sense, and like the projects are usually very good about scoping it correctly. So if you're welcome, you'll know, or like if you go look at it, you'll know that like, hey, yeah, I can come to this. Where like electrons is a little bit more scoped down to like, okay, cool, let's like plan for the next year of the project and everything that's happening. Like we have a major maintainer, who has stepped away, and so like we gotta, cool, like how do we adjust things, and that kind of thing is like less open. But then the node ones are more like, okay, cool, what's the future of the project? Like it's a little bit more egalitarian. So
are these projects like the node and the stuff like, and the electron, are they very community driven? Because I feel like the maybe this is just like a robotics thing. Robotics is hard.
Yeah.
And it ends up being like companies come in and are laying the foundation, which means that like they have a profit motive on top of trying to do this open source stuff, and it's getting really muddy. Like I'm not as involved, but I'm seeing some of my like former like friends and coworkers be like, this stuff's weird, and I'm just like, that's also part of the, that's a different side of open source that's happening. And I'm wondering if you have dealt with that at all, or if you've managed to stay away from that.
I think I have. I've dealt with basically every form that I know of corporations getting involved. Genuinely, at this point, I don't think, like, I wish it wasn't this way, but corporations do have to be involved in some capacity. I think partially in terms of like funding people's time. So like, most of the people who are like active in Node, their time is like funded by their employer. And like, Red Hat has a team of like 11 people or something that work some majority of their time on Node. Cloudflare has James and now like hired Yigis. And so they're both really good at specific parts that Cloudflare needs, and also it benefits them if Cloudflare is faster. Then I have like, there's friends who have worked at Nearform and like who founded Nearform. That's a Node company, like Node consultancy company, and they have historically invested a lot of time. I mean, even the first company I worked at, like that hired me into my role, was a Node company, like selling an enterprise version of the Node runtime. And so, yeah, I think like it's really hard to balance. And I think the more community run things are, the harder to balance it is, which is weird. Electron is open governance. It's basically like an adaptation of the Node governance from the things that, from the lessons learned from Node. And it is also mostly run by like corporations. Like most of the people involved are like full-time on this, or like either there's a team that's full-time on it, or there's like one or two people. And honestly, it's like one of the best and like safest and most comfortable communities I've ever worked in. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, and I think that's not like a guarantee with a space like that. But how Electron specifically has played out, it's, I think, genuinely like the best community I've ever been a part of.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really good.
No, yeah, I'm glad you. Oh gosh, the voice. I'm glad you asked that question, Alex, because I was thinking like, community driven. It sounds great, but you still need that capital, right? To, like you said, whether it's pay folks for their time, and also just like kind of make it a bit more like equitable in some ways, right? Because like not everyone might have the time and space, right, to just like, all right, let me just do this for vibes. So no, it's tough because it's like you don't want too much corporate influence, but at the end of the day, like they are still they're an invested stakeholder. So yeah, no, that's like pretty good. There's another question in terms of just like, has there been a project that you're like, this definitely, like software or a project that didn't pan out like you wanted it to? And you're like,
Yeah, there is. So sorry. Is there anything else to that question? I just want
Oh,
to make
no,
sure I didn't
no.
cut you
Oh,
off.
no,
Okay.
that was it. But I already feel like whenever they're the projects, you're like, oh, this could have been
Yeah.
a thing. But yes, go for it.
Yeah. So pretty early in like me getting involved in open source, there was a project called Tent. I adored that project. It actually practically was very similar to what the @, protocol that powers Blue Sky is, and they had their own Twitter-ish clone called Cupcake, which I think the domain, I don't even know where the domain goes anymore. Cupcake.is. I don't know. Do not recommend going there. I might be hijacked at this point, but Cupcake was, I made a bunch of like lifelong friends on that, and it was just us, and we all kind of cared about this platform a lot. And it was basically like, I don't know. I think the best way to describe it is kind of like MongoDB in the sense of like it's document based ish for like structured data. So it wasn't prescriptive about what the data was, but it would allow you to build like a schema and then store that schema, and then an app could access and display data from that, assuming that schema. It was really cool. I've talked about it a ton in talks. Not a ton, but there's a talk I have talked about it in multiple times. And yeah, it was a really cool project trying to do like decentralized social. This was right around the time that like app.net kind of like launched as a Twitter alternative to give people like a reference. And yeah, app.net was also like interestingly like decentralized but paid, and a bunch of interesting elements there. So it was very similar to that, but it just ended up not quite panning out. I think it was, I don't really like it. It kind of just died out slowly. But yeah, it was a sad, slow death. I still see every time I sign into Slack, on like any community Slack or work Slack, I still see the project that the people who were active there started, and the little Slack server for that. So it makes me sad every time I sign into Slack. But yeah, that one just didn't pan out. I think the founders had a big vision and then weren't able to execute on that. So yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. No, it's kind of interesting because it's like, I think there can be this assumption that like, we're just all excited by this vision. Let's just build together. But it's like, what's the infrastructure that you have around that? Like, even understanding, like, influencing folks to continue to contribute to something. Like, and I think when things are community driven, okay, actually, Bianca's going off the cuff for a little bit. Okay, so I think whenever there are things, I think sometimes in an effort to be like, F the system, right? You can kind of be like, oh, we don't have to opt. Like, there are things that the system does, and you're so like anti system that you're like, you kind of forget there's a reason why things had been functioning in other systems. So it's like, I think sometimes in community dynamics, there can be this like, we want to just veer so far off. And it's like you forget. So I don't know. I think as you were talking, it was making me think about like a lot of like community driven efforts, and like forgetting there are pieces of the quote unquote systems, right, that you might not be too much a fan of, but it's like, take what you need, leave what you don't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I know I just went on my little
No, you're
rift
good.
and tangent.
I think
Only if you had a soapbox, though.
Yeah.
Platform.
just add that.
I think, I think it's all, it really is dependent on like the situation and the space, and like there are things that are really valuable about how Twitter is centralized, but also it's very valuable to be able to own your own data, right? And that's like kind of why like Jack Dorsey had funded Blue Sky originally, and then now is like pretty against it because he has a different platform that he cares about more, I guess. I don't know. There's I think the big thing I end up landing on a lot is that a lot of software is subjective, and people like look at it very very strictly as if like, hey, this is the right thing to do for these reasons. You're wrong if you don't do it like this. And anytime I get on this subject, I like have a visceral flashback to a conference I spoke at. I believe this was the time that I was doing me and one other person co-presentation about the future of Node, as I was like chairing the community side of the project at the time. And someone came up to me after my talk and was like, hey, I work at a very large media company. I'm not going to name them, but very large media streaming company. Not the red one, not the one you're thinking of. Why should we use Node instead of Go? And I'm like, use the right, I don't know, you tell me. Why, what's the problem you're facing? It's not that like, I'm not going to always say like Node is better. I think Node is very wrong for some use cases. And it's very right for other use cases. And sometimes those use cases aren't technical, or the reason it's wrong or right isn't technical. Like if you have a bunch of front-end devs who all of a sudden are responsible for a back-end, writing it in a language that they know is like probably a better choice, because then they're not going to have to spend 6 months learning Go. But if you need like raw performance, which in this case they did, and I think this person was like trying to do a bit of a gotcha of like, well, but they knew these reasons why Go would be better for their use case. And it's like, cool, use Go. I do not care. Use the right tool for your job. And yeah, and so that's one that like always gets me when people are like, no, but we have to use this tool. Yeah, and I mean, there's even decisions in like some of the projects I work on that are like, actually, I don't think, like, I think doing JavaScript is the best for this feature rather than C++, not because it's like, it will be less performant, period. It's going to be. But as we're like building out a feature, it's good to have the ability to have a bunch of different people contribute who have very different perspectives, rather than limiting it to the pool of C++ devs. Who have very different perspectives than the people who are actually going to end up using it. So building it out in JavaScript first and then refactoring it into C++ later, super valid. And that allows us to get a lot further. And then once we've hit like, peak adoption curve, or like towards the end, actually, towards like the late adopters, that's when you can rewrite it and get the huge performance boost. And I think like that's the kind of like win-win there, where, some people want to do performance first. Some people just want to have it in JavaScript to always be able to maintain it. Like, there's a lot of valid reasons. And like, despite that being my opinion, I don't think it's always correct. So yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that just brings up a good point of like, sometimes you got to do the easy thing first to see if it's worth actually putting the time in to do the hard and the right thing.
Yep.
Yeah. What is it? The happy path? Yeah. No, that's real. No, when you were talking, it made me think about like just not being, so much of this work also requires you to not be so rigid on things. Like there has to be a level of just like openness, curiosity, like as you're going and as you're shifting. So that's super helpful. The other thing I'm thinking about is like just even the landscape of software. And then we're going into a more, the world everyone's more connected. So you have that aspect. Everyone wants to monetize everything. You have things like, AI and just like data. Like what are you seeing for this? Like, I know I'm probably like just jumping around, but like, I think what are you seeing on how that might impact the ways in which like communities are built? Like, and because I think typically, you maybe had these two main groups, right? Your contributors, your maintainers, but like, what is this new landscape of software kind of ask to add? Like, who needs to be added to the mix now, right? Like, as you're thinking about these communities and these projects. So I'm just curious, your thought.
Yeah, I think, is this in the context of AI specifically?
Yeah, we could use AI as an anchoring.
Yeah, totally. I think AI I am generally pretty critical of the AI stuff. Not because I don't think it's useful, but because I think the way people are using it is not the way it is useful. If that makes sense.
We might be giving a talk about that tomorrow, but
cool. I hope I'm not treading on anything or negating it.
All
But
good.
yeah,
All good.
yeah. I think a lot of the ways that the tooling that AI provides will actually be invisible and not something that like someone is directly engaging with. And very often the way when you're directly engaging with it and like using it to generate something and then giving that thing you're generating as the final result is like you're doing it wrong completely. I mean, I've seen very junior devs submit stuff and then be like, hey, this is good, it works, it passes the tests, and then it like it's not how we write anything, it's not how we do anything, and it like creates more problems for the people who are more senior to them of like, hey, we need to not do it like this for these reasons. And that's a negative. I think I mean the increase in spam PRs has been wild. It's been really negative. And so I think I'm pretty critical of that. I think it's actually adding a lot of maintainer burden rather than solving anything. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of individual examples of like, hey, I used it to do this and it was really helpful for this specific thing. And then it's also like, even with more senior people, it can be really dangerous because if you ask AI to write a regex that is, validate emails, and then it has like a really bad example, or like I just saw something, one of my former coworkers quote tweeted this, that an AI tool was like, like go watch this video to see how this does it, and it was a Rickroll. And it's like, that's built into the AIs now because it's been like poison pilled with Rickrolls.
Is
because
that our fault?
Yes. And so like it's just wild that like the thing, we all know the context of that and like when that's appropriate and when it's not really appropriate to send that to customer. So we're like, it catches everyone. Yeah, sorry, you're gonna say something.
I've been talking to some people who are working on like conference talks, and they're saying the number of AI written conference talks is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then the number of AI written reviews for conference talks to get in is just, it's like ruining the whole thing. And people are just kind of using it to spit out words. We're running the Twilio AI startup searchlight. Everyone who's doing really cool stuff with AI and actually using it in the right places should go apply. But last year we saw a lot of submissions that were written with AI. And I kind of had hopes that the people who are actually building companies with AI would know when to use it and when not to. But you literally see responses which is like, sure, I can explain how your company does blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, come on, it's a useful tool. Like for generation, it's interesting. I used it yesterday to help me brainstorm ideas. I didn't copy and paste a single thing from it. Like, it's there. And you're totally right. A stat from the 2024 Twilio State of the Customer Report. I don't think we intended to bring that in, but I got it up on my screen. 85% of businesses, again, I'll be using this when I talk tomorrow. 85% of businesses think AI is going to enhance engagement, how they how they work with their customers. Only 22% of customers agree, because customers are seeing the chatbots. Customers are seeing the badly written AI stuff that's just being pasted to them verbatim. Customers aren't seeing all the ways that AI can summarize a phone call so that you pull structured data out of this unstructured conversation. They're not seeing the ways that they can do cohort analysis to do a better job of understanding how to reach you and when. There's so many things that AI can do, as you said, where you don't know AI is doing anything.
Right.
But we're seeing is the examples of like, when Chevy has it and somebody somehow gets Chevy to promise they'll sell a car for
$1. Yeah, that's great. And I mean, even like some of the summary cases, like you have to spend a lot of time making sure it works well. I got a summary. You two don't know this story. It's a great story. I got a summary email from LinkedIn. I just get like a push notification on my phone from LinkedIn. Dominic Kundle, one of our coworkers, sent it's live. Dominic Kundle sent a message. Oh, hey Dominic.
Oh,
Dominic Kundle sent a message.
Wow. All we need to do is say his name.
Wow.
Dom appears.
Wow. That is too funny.
Dominic Kundle posts a message. Hey everyone, today's my last day. ... And I'm like, am I finding out that Dominic left
Through LinkedIn?
through a LinkedIn email? Not even like through LinkedIn, through an email I got. And I opened it and immediately saw it was that Dominic had reposted another former coworker of ours, Tilda, leaving their company at the time. Or I guess, yeah, this was like, they just announced that they were leaving. And I'm like, God, why? I was so upset. I went from like really upset at Dom to really upset at AI. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like it really what it's so funny because it's like don't leave this thing unattended. And I feel like even as we think about it with like, like within these communities, like it's not like AI is this new community member and you just let them roam free within the community or the project, like the same way that like you got, like you were mentored, you were like you had folks kind of connecting with you as you're running through a project. Like I do think there might be value in like you have to treat AI like it is a member of the community, the same guidelines, the same, you wouldn't put it on the like you wouldn't put AI on the most like like on a task that was super important, right, to the community. So I think there might be some space in which it's like don't give like so much leeway just because it's a technology. And I think sometimes when folks are like new tech, you get the keys to my car and my house and my bank account, and it's like
Dom also gave a great talk comparing AI to a toddler banging on a keyboard. Like,
that's correct.
Or like a toddler roaming around your house. Like I have toddler locks on half of the drawers in my kitchen because I don't want my toddler getting into my like some of my nicer glassware or some of our like chemicals under the sink. And I have locks on those. I also have drawers that are open, right? If she wants to go pull out a fork, I don't care. Knives, I do care, balance. It's the same thing. And I loved that analogy that he made about, like treating it like a toddler. Yeah, you don't just like give it free reign of everything.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, keep going.
I was gonna say like there definitely are a ton of really useful things. Like I think Copilot is useful. I do. I mean, the other big issue I have with a lot of AI stuff is just the training data and like, was it ethically sourced? Was it not? And at this point, it's all such a black box, and they are consuming so much that usually I'm pretty doubtful that it is. But I mean, and yeah, I think in the news recently has been the YouTube training data for like all the platforms that did that. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty fraught, but I do think that like the thing is useful, and I think eventually it can get to a place. I mean, like another big pet peeve of mine is like calling ML stuff AI and like the generic how everything has become generically AI when like there's stuff that I don't actually have an issue with. Like God, one of my favorite types of YouTube videos is random person build or like trains a neural net on a video game, and it gives it the inputs, and then it plays they just run it until it's good at the game. And I'm like, man, I wish I could do that so I didn't have to play video games as much to grind all this stuff out. But I don't think that's quite the same as like AI in the sense of LLMs. And I think LLMs have like vastly consumed the conversation, and I don't think that's productive either, because I do think there's a ton of really valuable uses for ML and like a bunch of other facets of things that are now considered AI that are now getting kind of like dunked on. So I don't know. I'm pretty critical about it, and I think even in its own space, I'm critical about it because I think there's a lot of like genericization of it. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We had gotten a question a while back. I was just like, I was running back to it because I was like, by the way, we're getting used to our new system setup, so we might miss some stuff. But I'm trying to remember what were we talking about? Don't you think with proper test cases?
Yeah.
Oh,
Those
I
need to be
think this
quick.
is yeah. So yeah, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
this?
I think it's too generic to be able to answer that effectively. I think
Mm,
like yes, proper test cases for sure, but like what does that look like? And is a team actually willing to implement that, or something that are they going to say that it's proper test cases, but it's not actually the thing that's like correct? And I think like the answer, like sure, yeah, if you implement the proper thing, but the subjectivity is what is the proper thing, and that's where it's like it gets a little bit murky. Um, and
mhm.
sure, like I also think that like I mean I've used like I have ADHD. I'm like extremely neurodivergent. Looking at a blank page is my worst nightmare. Like I cannot stand it, and I love writing. So like there's like a contradiction there, and so telling AI like, hey, I'm gonna write a blog post about this thing. Give me an outline for it, and I'm gonna like destroy that outline, but it gets
Yeah.
something on the piece of paper that then I can be like, okay, like I can go tell it it's wrong. It's the hacker news post, and I'm the commenter telling them they did it wrong, and that works pretty well. So
I'm
And no
cracking
one
up at
gets
your
hurt.
example.
yes, exactly.
I'm cracking up at your example because literally this was me. I was like, Alex, can you generate this summary for me on something? Because I was like, my brain. I was like, I knew the points, but I just needed reinforcement on something.
Yeah,
No, yeah, but I do love. I mean, I don't love that it wastes their time. It wastes the maintainer's time that they have to
Yeah.
cross check. But I love kind of what you mentioned around like, there's probably this benchmark that you have around like, what does it look like for a project to be well run? And
hmm
it's like, if a tool like AI comes in and it's like negatively impacting, like you kind of have like a benchmark. And I think even this introduction of like, as a, as these tools, right, are being introduced to projects, you already have a baseline of like what a successful project can look like, and like really doing that check in with yourself of like, is this making this worse or better?
yeah,
And like I think even as a community having a sense of like, okay, this is how we want this new technology to like materially
yeah,
impact like what we're doing, um you know in different ways.
yeah. I sorry, go ahead, Alex.
No, it's okay. You can go.
I was gonna say like I really love Copilot for documentation of like my
Mhm.
own small projects, just because like I actually pretty consistently write in the way that we write documentation in Electron, very formulaic, very structured, so the tool can parse it. But it also is like pretty logical. And it turns out Copilot's really good at figuring out, okay, what are the like logical things I would say next, given the structure that's above it, and also given the structure that like I've read from GitHub, which it turns out all of Electron stocks on GitHub, so it has a good model of what this looks like. And so all of my personal projects, I write docs like that, and it like literally verbatim suggests exactly what I'm about to write on like every bullet, and which is like how the API docs are structured, is mostly bullets. It's like great. I can just keep hitting tab until it gets something wrong or I need to adjust it or whatever. But at the same time, GitHub's Copilot PR description feature, I really don't like it. It's really bad. And to me, it's like it does provide a lot of context, but there's like a weird framing of how like it's following someone's style and it's not mine, and I don't like
Mhm.
it. And it also like, because it's following that style, it doesn't actually, it like chooses certain details to include, but not the ones I care about. And so to me, that just becomes useless. And then because it's useless, and because it's very consistent at being useless in that way, then I always know what a PR description is, like which PR descriptions are generated versus which ones aren't.
Yeah.
And that's like it's like both, it's really good at writing docs and really bad at writing PR descriptions, which is like very weird.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Didn't so back to the like comment, we have Anshul who's over on YouTube and asked that and made that comment about productivity. We did that. I think your team, Tierney, did the whole like state of developers thing that we've learned some things from internally, and one of them was looking at who's actually using AI to develop, and it's not new developers. Like we all had this vision that it would like make it more like anybody can be a high level developer. No, the most people who are using AI in software development are seasoned developers who know what they're looking for and how to interact. And you just describing how you're using it is that, right?
Yeah.
You've done a bunch of development. You know how you write documentation. You know it does a good job. You know when it's doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and use AI to be more productive.
Yeah.
Somebody who's just getting started that with doing this probably wouldn't have that same experience.
Yeah.
And
I think like again, I mean that's the same thing earlier, right? Around like, you know, people using it and just like, you know, spitting out C++ or whatever and it not being like how it should be. It's like it's a useful tool if you know what you're doing. And the thing I am actually concerned about, and I'm also generally pretty critical of concerns like this, so like, you know, take this with a grain of salt. But I am concerned that like if it's just vomiting out you know, built out websites, like there's a bunch of tools that do this, people are going to stop learning to build websites. And like you gotta know something about it. And I think we will have like a retraction. Like I think we're in a, you know, huge expansion right now, and I think it will be like a reckoning of like, okay, cool, we need to pull this back a little bit. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting time, and I think I'm also very critical of cryptocurrency. May shock people. I think, unlike cryptocurrency, this AI stuff will stick around. Or I mean, cryptocurrency is sticking around, but in a business sense, it will be sticking around more kind of broadly and more consistently. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the two kind of like adoption curves kind of mirror each other but differ, because I think they are doing a lot of mirroring each other. Like it's a huge part of the hype cycle. I mean, a bunch of the crypto people are super into the AI stuff, but at the same time, there is business value in it, and I think it's kind of probably overstated right now or like misunderstood. And people are saying, "Oh, this thing, everyone's jumping at this thing. I need to jump at this thing. How high do I jump?" And then it's infinity dollars. So then they jump as far as they can.
Right. And I feel like I'm seeing the other side of that, which is I'm seeing people totally dismiss any potential of AI because they saw crypto and feel like it fell on its face or didn't live up to any of the hype. And because of that are like, well, it's the same as crypto. So I'm just not, this is stupid. And I'm like, I think there's a little bit more there. We actually had a great comment from Dom that I want to pull up here. I feel like so much of LLMs is in its first cell phone camera stage. It has a lot of potential, but currently only serves some people for real value. But people create so many good proofs of concepts that show the potential, but few people set the right expectations of what it's currently capable of. I just thought that was like a great summary. Dom runs our emerging technologies team and is at the forefront within Twilio of building with AI. So he sees this stuff. He's got great opinions on this, and I appreciate that viewpoint.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think that like that's very in line with what I was just saying of like, I think it's useful. I don't think it's useful in the way people think it's useful. And I think over time, like we're gonna see. I mean, I had a friend tell me that like, you know, they're at some B2B SaaS company, and they had a mandate. They work on like the core platform. They had a mandate, add a chatbot, and they went to do it, and you know their kind of description of this to me was really interesting, and it was, you know, in the 90s, like we went to websites to order a pizza, and that was like great. Like we could just order a pizza without having to talk to a person, and now we're like going full circle back, and now I have to talk to a chatbot to order a pizza. It's not easier. I'd rather just click the buttons on the website. And I think that's like a really good description of like, it has to actually add value
Yeah.
It has to make it easier if I want to use it.
So, but okay, but when you say easier, this goes into like easier for who, right? So I think like you know, when the tech is like it's only getting easier for, you know, one side of the coin, and I think that's like you forget like, hey, we customers were the inspiration behind it, you know, at the onset, customers, users, right? But then I think going back into like, yeah, like who's truly benefiting from this? And I think if I even think about like, you know, all the introduction of the AI talk, right? Like right now, you know, maybe a lot of the folks who are tinkering, like the general consumer is not getting a big, huge value from AI, right? And I think right now it's like the tinkerers and the builders and the folks like that. And I think, you know, going back into like, well, who's getting value? And I think what's going to be interesting is like when we get things mass market, when things start to become more consumer based, like remembering like, hey, this isn't just for the builders. This is like, we have to kind of make sure multiple folks can be in that conversation. No, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's also complicated by I think it's complicated by this. I'm trying to think about how to say this. It's complicated by the people who are seeing this as an opportunity of, hey, there's this big thing I can get in early and be like really embedded in it, and be like, you know, I can write, I can do like courses on it, and I can do webinars, and like not in the sense of like at a company or as a part of their product, but that is the product, is the selling, teaching this or selling their influence or selling their understanding of it. And I think anytime like that makes it really murky, and it makes it really hard to know what is actually like useful and valuable and moving us forward versus what's someone trying to make a buck off you and not actually know. And I think that I think that happened a lot with crypto, and I think that this is the first time where like that's happened in like programming languages for a long time, but this is the first time where that's like the growth of that is coinciding with the growth of the technology. And I think that is actually making it really murky for us, in just like processing information. And it's actually probably kind of contributing to the negative backlash, and then reasonable negative backlash, that some of these, you know, tools are having. So yeah,
it's kind of interesting because I feel like there's this assumption that people don't want to see the back end, and when in actuality, like, you know, there's this obsession around speed, or like I want this created right then and right there. But like some people, I mean, I'm thinking about like MySpace, right? You hear talks a lot about people being like, yeah, like, well, I learned how to build my first website because I was tinkering, and MySpace didn't provide X, Y, or Z. So I think like I do think there is this assumption that folks, you know, people want ease and they don't want to be able to modify or configure. But you like, I don't know. I do think it might be interesting for us to like test our tech assumptions and like how people are engaging with technology, how much people want to see, you know, like on the back end. And I don't know. It's like we're in an interesting space. Lots of curiosity is needed for sure. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Are you gonna
You're
let
good.
AI draw your next tattoo?
Me? No.
It was pretty.
I was like, who? That's not me.
I was like, I know Alex is not. I was like, oh my gosh, like, have you seen the renderings? They don't even have all 5 fingers. It's like, and I understand, right?
Yeah.
Like all bodies are created differently, but it does not even try. It doesn't even try. Like AI will just be like, yeah, you have this. Anyways,
the weird part is how natural it looks to have 8 fingers. Like
that is,
you're like,
that
oh yeah,
is
this
true.
looks normal until I count. That's the weirdest part.
I mean, the other thing too, and like I'm, you know, very broadly critical of AI in a number of ways, but I think one of the ways that I think it's like kind of
It looks like a Mid-Journey tattoo. That is a good insult.
Damn. I have to remember that
Sorry.
one.
Sorry, I was thinking about
artist friends. That's gonna be really funny sometimes.
I was thinking about our future like history books, like,
Mhm.
and you heard an insult from the streets. That looks like a midget, like the jokes of this era. Oh my gosh. Okay, back to you.
Yeah, I think I do think though that like you have to part of being critical of these tools is understanding them at least beyond like a surface level, and that is also part of why I get frustrated with like ML stuff being included under AI is like I don't think building ML models is hurting anyone. ML is almost certainly hurting someone, but yeah, I think like all of the aesthetic issues with like LLM generated images are going to go away. Like we've already seen it get so much better. And like I think like it's really funny some of the images, but that is not actually gonna like long term that's not going to be a good way to tell an AI image from a non AI image.
It's gonna be hard.
Yeah, and I mean even actually there's I watch a lot of NKBHD content, and one of the things that they have discussed a few times is like what is an image, because at this point like all of the phones are like a lot of the like flagship androids are beginning to ship with like very impressive AI tooling that like lets you add yourself into a photo, and like that one's probably more ML than like LLM stuff. It's not like generating an image, but there's a lot of like really cool machine learning stuff going on. And at some point it's like this photo didn't happen and never existed and isn't real and what could not ever be real. Right. Is it still a photo? And I think that's like a really interesting question of like when is something a creation versus a photograph. And I don't love being prescriptive in those like situations of like I don't like gatekeeping like what something is or isn't most of the time. So yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah, and I know you're into photography as well, and we've kind of been dealing like with this for a while, right? Photoshop, like it was photoshopped.
Exactly.
Now it's AI generated. Back in the day, one of my favorite pieces of art that I have in my house is by an artist named Jerry Yulesman, and he would do these crazy things in a darkroom. So I have a picture of a house growing out of a tree, and it's all darkroom. There's no Photoshop in there, and it was art to create that. So there's also like the debate of like, when does it matter? When does it not? But yeah, how do you feel about as somebody who enjoys photography and there, like, how do you feel about kind of the digital editing and both with AI or manually when it comes to these pictures?
I don't love generative fill. Like I don't love just like, adding a bunch of stuff there. I think that, but also like people have done that for a long time. Like, there's very many format. Like, I mean, most movies are literally just like us filling a bunch of like compositing a bunch of images together. And even like, another channel on YouTube I love is Quarter Crew. And they do a lot of like VFX deep dives. And, one of the, I wish I could remember what it's called. Brent might know. One of the old models that, one of the old like ways that they would composite images is they would do like a plate, so like a roll of film of whatever they wanted to capture as the background, and then they would do a really cool thing with a lens where they're shooting it at like 90 degrees, so the subject's over here, and then they're playing that previous film over here, and then they're merging them with like mirrors and glass in the middle, and then recording it in the middle. And so it like if you do it right, it creates these really, really cool, and it like unlocks a lot of things for you. I also do think that like people had to think a lot about that and like do that right and do that. And now you can just be like, I don't know, put in some goblins in the background on a castle. Like you can do that, and that's fine, kind of. Again, also, especially with film and video, like actually Quarter Crew did do something I was pretty critical of, which is like they did an anime rock, paper, scissors battle. Really cool, looked really good. It was also very much directly in the style of a specific anime that this model was definitely trained on, and that they presumably prompted a little bit. And so like, where's the line of that of like art style and stuff?
It's like so tough because like it's so interesting. Still images I'm okay with, but once you get into video, it's like too far. So like right now there's this like trend on what is that thing called? On like TikTok, and it's folks who have family members who are deceased and they're like doing it as though the person's embracing them. And I'm like, ooh, and mind you, this is as a person who's lost a loved one. I would love, like even I've contemplated, I was like, am I going to be one of those people that like has a photo of my dad, like, opposed, like put on another photo? I don't know how I feel about that because that was the version of my dad during that age. And it's like tough, like even stuff around like, death and like the person's image. Do they even want their face?
Want that? Yeah, they can't consent to that.
Yeah. Would they even like that? So that to me is just like, I think when I think about photography, I think the thing that made art cool is just like expression. It was your voice, right? I'm also curious, like, how did you even get into like, taking photos? Like, what was that? Like, was that like a side hobby? Were you like, I'm just gonna dabble at this? What was the pathway there?
I liked doing it a bit as a teenager. And so it was like, a passive kind of hobby. Then my stepfather had a pretty nice DSLR, and then I had like, my mother always had like point and shoots for her like Etsy stores and stuff. And so I had cameras available to me and I could go out and like take photos, and I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a way to be creative that didn't require like physical, I'm not like good with motor skills that well. Like I'm not super agile. And so, it was a way that I could like have fun doing art-ish stuff without it being like, okay, I have to like learn how to paint a hand. Never gonna happen. Well, I mean, it could, but like I'm not going to. And then, that was a thing. And then when I was in college, I went to a community college, and that community college, the degree program I was in, was Communication Arts New Media, and that was in the radio and television program. So there's a bunch of required photography and like television recording, editing, film editing stuff. So like I learned to use Avid, which is like a video editing tool. I learned Photoshop, Illustrator, never learned After Effects, which I'm sad about. But I learned a bunch of those tools in there. And then also there was like 2 required digital photography classes and then 2 required film photography classes. And so that was like really nice of just like, here is what you're going to do. Here are all the elements. Here's what looks good in photos. Here's what doesn't look good in photos. Here's how to develop film in a darkroom. It's really fun. Honestly, it's fun.
Oh, darkrooms are so much fun.
It's a good time.
I did it in high school. Like that was like same reason photography. It's like I loved art, but it was like I didn't know how to. I was bad at drawing, so all of a sudden I like found this art that I could do. And darkrooms are so much fun. And then like it was still years ago now at this point, in Chicago, I found a community darkroom. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go there for like an hour or 2. It was like 6 hours later, and I walked out and I was like, what just happened?
It's so fun.
It's so much fun.
Yeah. And like I still love, like I don't think I would have ever picked up like video editing if it wasn't for that stuff, and I like really enjoy doing that. And then because it's just like a muscle that I have but don't flex super often, and so it's fun to flex it. And then just the photography was pretty persistent. I mean, that was like there was a lot more classes that were very similar there. And so I continued doing that, and then since then it's just been like a personal hobby. It's just something I can do that's not work, that I can go and be like, this is fun to go and take photos, and then it makes people happy when I have good photos of them. And then I 1 out of 100 times I give my camera to someone else, I get a good photo of myself. So
I mean, it's so interesting because like I feel like you're a person of many hats, and like I don't know, do you feel like you just dabble into certain things and you're like, okay, I'm over this? Like, how do you determine what stays
Yeah.
like a Tierney hobby or a Tierney job or a Tierney, like, this gets my time? Because I feel like, I don't know, you're super versed in so many different things. So I'm just like curious. Like,
I'll give you the secret: ADHD. Just
okay, that's real.
letting it
That's
run
real.
wild, and whatever sticks, and whatever doesn't.
I saw this. I saw
Yeah.
this.
There was one time I had a coworker who also had ADHD come up to me and be like, "How do you do like all of the work you do?" And I'm like, that the past like 2 months before that, this was in a previous job. The past 2 months before that, I'm like, I haven't done that much. I haven't done much recently. Like, I got a big thing done a while ago, but I've just been kind of coasting for a minute. And so to have someone come up to me and be like, "How do you do all this?" I'm like, "Oh, right. I'm not like kind of normal." My bar of like I am occupied is really high, because my attention changes like every hour, and so when your attention changes every hour, and you're in a role like developer relations where that can be beneficial, it turns out you can have a bunch of things going at the same time, and outside it looks like there's a ton happening, but really, I mean, to me, I feel like I'm just like, checking in on stuff, progressing things like incrementally. But in like totality, it is actually like kind of a lot. So yeah, I mean, interests all ADHD. I mean, I'm like slowly picking up DJing, which is, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my like controller back there. I have like a whole setup that I've invested in.
Do you have a DJ name?
No, I mean, same as my Twitter handle, Bit and Bang. I'm gonna keep it consistent. I have a platform already. Keep it going.
I'm torn. Every now and then I get torn because like I used to be like B Lori on all the things, but then I'm like, am I still B Lori? Have I evolved? Because then for a little bit I'm like, I'm gonna use like Lori B. Gosh, I just told the internet. I just gave them my secret sauce.
You.
Oh, no.
I know.
I was doing the math in my head. I'm like, wait, do I say the other handle that I use sometimes?
I was like, damn, don't be like me. Damn, now I have to. I don't know. We'll edit this out. But I sometimes I'm just like, maybe I might just go back to be Lori. It's like, it's me. It's my thing. But then I was just like, I don't know. I'm just like, where can I be on the internet that's like hidden and just like free? Because everything feels so like, just like perfect and like curated.
I will say the one like oddity with my usernames is my username came from Jeff Atwood's blog. Specifically Jeff Atwood coding, I believe Jeff Atwood is coding hoarder. Now I'm checking because I'm actually okay, yeah. Coding horror. But yeah, I went to his blog and he had some post about like alternative Jeff Atwood. He had like alternative, programmer words for symbols, and I needed to find a handle that my parents wouldn't know or that my mother wouldn't find online. And so I looked at the ampersand and the exclamation point, and ampersand is bit and like the bitwise operator, and then exclamation point is a bang. And so I went bit and bang. But eventually that got found by my mother, and so I needed some other stuff, and so I started abbreviating it to B&B, which at the time on GitHub was a empty account, like it had nothing in it, no associations, and so I like I submitted a support ticket to GitHub of like, hey, this handle's like not used, can you release it? And they're like, yeah, we deleted the account. You have to go change your username right now. Someone else might grab it. And I'm like, okay. And I did it. And so I'm B&B on GitHub. And then every new platform, I try to get B&B on. The one additional variant is I got Bang on Keybase. And for like a decade on Twitter, Bang was a banned journalism publication, like a newspaper or something from Mexico, and so that account was like suspended for a decade, And then every like couple months I checked on. I even like had tools that like monitored availability. And then one day I like just go search it, and then it's a League of Legends player who has like 100,000 followers, and I'm like, damn it,
Really?
I'm so mad.
Like,
I spent so much time searching for this. This person didn't take it. I could have. Yeah, I think Bang is actually like a really, really good League of Legends player. If I don't know anything about League of Legends, but I'm pretty sure he's a really good one. So
I haven't heard Keybase in a minute. I dabbled there in college. Some of the security folks that I sat next to, or were like in a different, were like loved Keybase, and then got a bunch of free crypto money from them for some reason.
It was a big big early crypto thing, and that was when I kind of signed off of it. So
you're like that. You're like, that is when I show myself out.
If you still have those Stellar Lumen that they gave you, they're worth some money now.
Oh damn! I mean, I think I bought. I was like looking at when I was in like 2014 or something. When I was in, maybe it was 2016. I was like looking at like Litecoin and Ethereum, and I'm like, oh, I can buy like a whole Litecoin versus like half of an Ethereum.
Right.
I regret that one.
I mean, I remember my friend being like, in like 2012, being like, there's this new thing called Bitcoin. They cost $30. And I was like, sounds like a scam.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not wrong, but still.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, no, that is so wild. I did have, I like.
Wait, are we bringing Dom's also? Are we bringing Keybase back? Dom also remembers that one.
I love Keybase. I mean, it was like a good tool for the thing, and then it got like they introduced a bunch of features that I don't think were actually useful, or at least for me they weren't useful.
That is so like 10.
Dom said he had a friend buy a pizza with 10 Bitcoin. That is an expensive pizza.
Very. Oh, that's hard. That's
a $300,000 pizza.
Wow. Well, hopefully.
I mean, $60K at the peak, I think.
Yeah, so $600K. So $500,000 for pizza. That's
wow.
fine.
I mean, I've seen different costs, but that's pretty.
So, I want to ask more about the photography and take that in a different direction. Do you like to photograph people? Do you like to photograph landscapes? What do you like? What subject matter really excites you?
I think it's mostly people. I don't know. I think I don't really like line up a shot and then like take it. I take a lot, and like I tell friends when they have me like photograph their stuff. Like I recently photographed. There's a local nonprofit that one of my friends is the managing director of, Hack and Why. It helps students get into like internship roles. It's really great, really good community.
It's like OG. That's a Hack and Why's been doing some stuff for a minute.
I have a fun Twilio story with Hack and Why. They made track jackets, and Rob Spector was like, "Oh, that's cool," and then Twilio track jackets exist.
Drama.
Yeah,
that's not the story I heard, but maybe that I believe.
I think I know that Hack and Why had them first.
I believe that. For me it was I heard that there was something about Jeff really enjoying the Royal Tannenbaums.
Oh, interesting.
And that's where part of like the idea of maybe that's where swag, like it as a piece of swag came, but then it for like development. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's some. That's not the story we tell in the official track jacket lore at Twilio.
You were not the first person to tell me that.
Yeah, I believe that. I'm sure it's like it's always that like it's three things at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. As Dom, who's been around longer than any of us, says, I can see both being true. So, and then what's Chef Brent, who's also been along longer than any of us. Yeah, he believes the Hack and Why story fully.
But yes. To finish that story real quick, I went and took like photos of their 15th year graduation, like closing kind of thing, and I told my friend Shai that I take a lot of photos, and like my goal is like 10 of them for an event like that. Like 10 of them are useful, like actually really good, and that people like them and are into them. I took, I think, of that event, I took 2,000. It was a 70 gig upload, compressed. So that was fun.
Do you think there's a world where because you have to look through all those,
Yeah.
like, and figure out. Do you think there's a world where like you just throw an AI on top of it and say, look through these, tell me which ones you think are the best?
I think there's a world where I do that. One, I would not want to be giving up my rights on those photos to that AI.
No, of course. Yeah.
And then two, I think I would I would use that as a tool to be like, okay, cool. Like, give me an idea of what you think is good. But I don't actually think it would like always be able to tell me that. And I'm sure that ones that I think are good would be outside of that. And so like, yeah, in a similar way to like, you know, how I use Copilot to write like an outline. I think it's like a good set of examples, but maybe not. Like, I would still go through it.
It would be interesting as an ML side of being like, these are the ones I like.
Yeah.
Out of this set. Can you also predict in the next set what it's going to be?
I would love that. If I could like build a set over time, that would be really nice.
Another question I had, just because I'm curious, because New York is you live in New York now. Like Tierney's in New York.
Yeah.
I think it's a very neat city to like get around. How do you like to get around New York?
Yeah, I do take the train pretty often, but more recently, every time. So we have City Bike in New York. City Bike is like a public bike share system. There's regular bikes and e-bikes. I just like e-bikes, so I would take the e-bikes. But every time I buy a City Bike membership, I also end up buying another bike, like right after. So I've now twice bought a City Bike membership, and then within 2 weeks, bought a like $3,000 bike. So yeah, I really do love e-bikes. Especially like I live in South Brooklyn, and North Brooklyn is like where a lot of my friends live. A lot of events I go to are in North Brooklyn. And like the trains between South Brooklyn and North Brooklyn are really not existent. There's the G, which is close to me, but it only goes to like a subset. And then if I want to go to like, you know, the more west or eastern part of North Brooklyn, like good luck. So rather than like, you know, Ubering over there or whatever, I'll either use my bike or get a city bike and go over there and just bike around. And it's like, it's always faster too. Like, I also go faster than cars most of the time, not because I'm actually going faster, but because
traffic.
Yeah, because of traffic. And like I get up to the green light.
Always catch up.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I when I was living in Chicago, I biked a lot, and that was my favorite way to get around. And Chicago Transit's great if you happen to be on the right line, but it didn't connect it all the way. What kind of bike did you get?
I got a Specialized Turbo SL 4.0, I believe.
Those are nice.
Turbo Vado 4.0 SL, which SL is super light, so it's like 35 pounds. So it's really like I can lift up with a single hand, and it has 60 miles of range if you're using like the low end power. I always use the high end, and so it probably has more like 16
cruise.
But
that's a lot. You don't realize
it is and like I think the furthest I've gone so far is I went across the Manhattan Bridge, rode the coast of Manhattan on the west side, which is like the more developed, richer side that they've invested a lot more money in. I have very severe criticisms of the east side and how they're not investing money in it. But yeah, I rode up the west side, and then when I broke out to Central Park, did a lap around Central Park, and then came home. And like coming home, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I have enough power to get home, which is fine with this bike specifically.
Right.
But yeah, that's like really far. So it was a good time.
Yeah, we early in the summer I got a cargo, like a front load cargo bike with the big tub. So like we'll go and you know, if we want to go to the farmers, I feel like this is the most Denver thing. I go to the farmers market and I put my dog and my kid inside of in front of my bike.
Just a tad.
It's harder. That light bike sounds super interesting. I obviously got one for cargo, and my wife got one to also hold the baby if she wants to. But I think a lighter bike might have been nice because they're kind of heavy and a little hard to move. And yesterday I forgot to put my battery back in when I was biking with mine, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun going up this hill.
Yeah, so previously I had, and it's actually in my storage unit that I went and got the locks drilled on like last week. I also have a Rad Runner. Oh gosh, I forget the model, but like one of the step through Rad Runners.
My wife got a Rad, the
Yeah,
newer Rad Runner.
they're great. It's just
I
heavy.
think it's the best value. I think if
Yes,
you're
I agree
going
with
for value, the Rad bikes are great. We
Yeah.
tried them out. They drive almost as nice as some of the other bikes. The nicest one we rode though was Turn. I don't know if you tried those out. Those were the nicest rides.
Nice.
And I got mine is a Yuba. Which is
Nice.
a fun word to say.
When are we gonna have the collective? I feel like a lot of people on DevNet have really great taste. Like I just feel like we just need the running list of like
Best of the best.
maybe that's what we build on stream. Like literally the best of the best. I feel like the jewelry Rex.
I have so many.
I was influenced. So the jewelry Rex, we have our audio Rex. I feel like yeah, DevNet hanging around y'all. I just every other week I've added something to my cart, and I'm just like no. So then it's like y'all, I don't know, y'all have we have good taste on this team.
Yeah. And then Jossie, one of the other people on Tierney's team, has a very different vibe for bike because he's got one. What are they called? Like Super 77s or something?
Super 76. Yeah.
Super 76, and they like look like they're super cool. But I'm like, you can't really pedal it. I'm a tall guy, so it like doesn't totally work for me. But they're really cool.
They're really cool. I think for me it would have the same problem as the Rad Runner, which is just like it's big, it's chunky. Yeah.
No, yeah, okay. So sorry, I'm still thinking about this. Like, I think it's like the DevNet holiday gift guide.
Yeah.
I already see it now. So we'll have the holiday gift guide and we'll start collecting submissions. This is great. Okay, this is fantastic.
I can tell you about TVs. I can tell you about PC parts. I can tell you about computers, cameras.
Lighting recommendation. Like, I think you had recommended some lighting stuff. I added that. That's being added to the mix on the renovations.
You told us about your headphones today.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the headphones.
I love these headphones.
That's going to be added to the mix. Brent told me.
I'll throw in some T-Rex.
Oh, okay, great. So this is great, y'all. This is great. The DevNet holiday gift guide.
Wait, do you like tea, Alex?
I love tea.
Have you had the Mandarin, like the I think they're Chinese, but the mandarins that you like re-steep multiple times? They're so good.
So yeah. I do drink a lot of
cool.
Chinese teas. Like there's a lot of fermented teas that I drink. I have a tea that I haven't cracked open yet that came stuffed into a bamboo log.
Nice.
There's some cool stuff out there, but you'll have to show me those Mandarin ones.
Yeah, no, they're so good. If you ever come to New York, I think it's, I forget what the name is, but there's a giant tea shop in Chinatown that's really good.
See,
low key, that's
like
my like retirement dream. I got a friend who's also super into tea, and it's like we're just tea house.
Yeah,
it sounds fun.
You'll have my tea in there.
I know,
because that's my like side hobby. Yeah. Okay, so in addition to our holiday gift guide, we're gonna have a photo book because also DevNet is filled with the photography. I feel like we have a lot of folks on the team, so we're just gonna have a photo book, and those are just our gifts for end of the year. I don't know who's funding this, but I'm not, but I don't know, we'll add it to the Q4 budget or Q3.
I have another rec. If you're looking for glasses, go to Gentle Monster. Their stores are incredible. They're so cool. They have like robotics and stuff in them.
Ooh.
And then the prices are like a little bit more than Warby Parker. But they're like really stylish. These are my old Warby Parkers because I lost my old Gentle Monsters in the ocean. We don't need to talk. They're Gentle Monster Mesa Margiela collab. I'm so sad. We don't need to talk about it too much. But I just went and bought 2 more from them, and they're so pretty. So.
Yeah, I'm spoiled because there's a really nice glasses store in Denver that carries like not these, but the last glasses I had are the same brand that Jeff Goldblum has his like custom glasses designed as. And I tried his glasses on, and my wife was just like, with your beard and like, I mean, they're thick frames, like Jeff Goldblum thick frame glass. She's like, it's too much. There's like none of your face showing. But they're super cool.
No, it was I love how Tierney just quickly glossed over, just like,
Yeah.
lost classes in the ocean. We're like, I was like, we won't ask questions, but we do have questions, but we won't. This is
I,
if you decide to skip over it, we will be
Look,
okay.
I went to Rockaway with some friends from a tattoo parlor, and one of them was surfing, and I was not surfing. Very big waves that day. Very good time. But yeah, we three of us went out in the water, just vibing in the like swimming portion next to the surfing portion. And I got hit by giant waves, like way bigger than my head, even if I'm jumping multiple times. Super fine, no problem. But that was like face on or in the back. But then one of the waves, like a little bit even in the shallower part, just hit me like it went up to my head and then was like right at the side. So like all of the water was curving over the glass and it just like sheared it off my face. And I come out of the wave and I'm like, wait, something's wrong. And then I'm like, oh yeah, my glasses are not there. So
Oh my gosh. So when I used to be a glasses wearer, which is like my whole life, I was like, your glasses, you become one with your glasses. Cause like in my
They're a
mind,
part of
I'm
you.
like, they really are. So it's like, even it's so funny, even right now, I think my like esthetician, she's like, did you ever wear glasses? It's like, do I give glasses energy? I feel like I kind of do. I don't know. But anyways, but I think when you're talking about losing the glasses and not realizing until
yeah.
like after the fact, you're like, wait a minute. I'm one with the
Something's
glasses.
wrong here. I mean, I went and I had to get a new prescription to get new lenses in the new frames, but I also got like contacts just because I'm like, hey, I would actually maybe like to wear sunglasses occasionally, because I'm not gonna deal with getting one pair of prescription sunglasses.
These have clips. I love them.
Yeah, I would love ones that have clips. I think clips are great. But yeah, so I went in and like got contacts and I wore the contacts out that day. And it was like I kept doing that. I kept going to push up on my nose and I'm like, wait, something's and like I ended up going to a show with one of the friends who's actually there when I lost the glasses. And I just kept doing that in front of her at this venue in New York. And I'm like, oh, right. I don't have these anymore.
It's like so weird because it also for me it used to be a way I could hide and like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know I'm still in therapy
Yeah.
but like I just it just was a thing. Thank you Robertables. I was like
Yeah.
I still weirdly keep a stash of I have glasses that don't have a prescription in them because I just want the vibe. It's
Yeah.
just like when I need to add a little oomph,
Yep.
little something something.
Yeah.
Because now I feel like I look like just regular Bianca, like
Yeah.
the like
Look,
Bianca with the glasses.
I got LASIK and then was almost like a little happy when my eyes degraded a little bit from there. Cause like I can get up in the morning and I don't need to wear glasses. It's like not a big deal. I don't really want to drive without them, but like generally I'm okay. But then I still get to wear them and like have them and I like it.
Alex, wait, you mean you had LASIK and you need them?
I still need them. I didn't go to I don't think I went to a LASIK person. I made a mistake. I didn't go to like one of the LASIK centers. I went to like a normal eye doctor. Bad move.
Chat is maybe like a foot and a half away from me. I cannot read a single letter in there at all. I'm bad.
My sister's eyes were really bad. And like, you as an older brother, you got to torture your siblings a little bit.
Of course.
One of the things I would do was occasionally like before she woke up, move her glasses, just like move them, not hide them, literally move them. She was done. She couldn't find them. She was miserable. So yeah,
that's why these glasses exist. Is I know where they are, and I will find them if I can't find my normal glasses.
And then you can find your normal glasses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We have been chatting about so many fun things that one topic that I just really want to get to is and moving back into the realm of code and open source and things like that. You manage a lot of the open source flavored, we'll call it, repos at Twilio. So can you tell us a little bit about how we're thinking about the code that we share with others and how that kind of fits into our bigger vision a little bit?
Yeah. So like you said, I specifically manage the the public GitHub organizations at Twilio. So Twilio, Twilio Labs, and Twilio Samples. Those are the three kind of orgs that have public code. We have additional organizations that are internal. We also have separate segment and SendGrid orgs that I do not manage, but are managed by other teams. So yeah, we have a lot of code public. And in the sense of managing an organization, like I've done this before for Node, I've contributed to this with Electron, and Electron built custom tooling for this. So I have a lot of experience in this. I mean, I even managed Microsoft's orgs to some degree. Yeah, I have a lot of experience in this space, and it's pretty intense. I specifically approve like all requests to join, and I help kind of manage the structure. And then, a big part of it has been just, cool, let's get this into a healthy spot where, everything's running super smoothly. There's no like, nothing that should be somewhere else, or nothing that, we're doing a good job on our tooling, and, there's nothing that has access that shouldn't. So it's a lot of like just admin and overhead. And in addition to that, I also do maintain some repos that help us with that. So in Twilio Labs, there's a repo called OmniOculus. So github.com/Twilio-labs/OmniOculus. This is a repo of a bunch of the tooling that GitHub has actually provided for OSPOs, so open source programs offices, which generally do this work to be able to report on their kind of like state of open source. I've done this fully in the open. I don't really see a harm to doing it. And I think like if there's an issue in something that's reported there, that's more of an us thing rather than a thing that's like bad to be public because it's public information. So yeah, doing a bunch of work in that. I do use 3 of their tools. There's one called Watchtower, which I believe is the stale repo reporting tooling. So it'll say like, hey, here's the last commit to this repo was, 1,500 days ago. And for me, that's like, cool. I can probably like, when I have some spare time, I can go through that list and be like, cool, let me knock these ones out. And just be like, go to the person if they're still here and say like, hey, can I archive this? And that one that was 1,532 days or something, the person was still here, and it was like some tooling around like processing shebangs. So they were like, oh yeah, we don't use that anymore. You can archive that. And so a lot of it is just me archiving repos with that tooling. There's also tooling that just like monitors our main SDKs and like our responsiveness in that and stuff. And so that's a useful tool of just like understanding where we are and how we can, potentially improve. And I can bring those to product teams and be like, hey, there's, maybe some things we can do to improve here. And so that's really useful. There's also the contributor reports, which I didn't realize were broken for like 4 months. And so I went and fixed because there was a typo in the path on the NPM script. So I updated that a couple weeks ago, and that's working now. But that runs and just gives us an update on like, hey, here's these new contributors, here's these people who've contributed, here's how much they've contributed. And so that's really nice and useful. And then there's a couple others in there. There's one that I always, it's like, it's an issue reporting tool, but yeah, I don't pay attention to that one too much, but I just want to collect the data. And this is all like me, just I want to collect data. And then additionally, there's a tool that I actually built before I joined Twilio that creates a weekly kind of summary, like that could be a blog post of all of the activity in an organization. It's like, hey, here's all the things that are open to this, or that were opened or are currently open, which could be like it got closed and then reopened, but are open this week. Here's all the things that got closed this week. Here's all the things that got merged. And so it kind of like goes through that and just does it for every single repo. And so it gives you kind of a readout of like, here's all of the activity in this GitHub organization.
I know you had mentioned maybe bringing some stuff to products. I'm kind of curious, like for other folks within an organization that like may want to get more active, right, within their open source colleagues, right, within their organizations. Like, how does it look like for folks, right? Like if someone, how could they kind of contribute in some ways, right?
Yeah, it does definitely depend on your company and kind of the ethos around open source. Like, and even to some degrees, if your company's big enough, the team you're in and like that team's ethos. Like, I've had friends who were in like, sales engineering roles who were like prolific open source maintainers, but couldn't get the company to say like, yes, you can do this, because it wasn't really aligned with their role. And so like I'd say your best bet is if you're in a software engineering role, it's more possible, and you kind of got to look at it. You got to break it down. So one, is this going to add value to your business? Is the way you're going to get your manager to say yes. Like I don't love capitalism, but we all have to exist under that system currently. And so like figuring out the ways that you can kind of connect the work in open source to that the work that your business needs from you and is paying you to do, and trying to figure out how you can kind of justify like, this is actually going to save us time and money if we contribute to this, if I contribute to this. Usually also I would say a we is stronger, of like, then it can be a team thing, like, hey, we're all contributing to some things that'll affect us, and then that's usually easier to justify up, which is weird because you would think like individual justification would be easier because it's like less, but it turns out that is like usually more special. So finding ways to like justify your investment, and that could be like, hey, I'm gonna spend like 3 hours on a Friday just fixing Babel and like fixing issues in Babel that like have come up for us specifically, so then we don't encounter these in the future, and then like, or adding tests for them or something. So that's like a primary way I would recommend, is just figuring out how you can associate it with like your company. Also, some companies do see open source as like hiring, and so figuring out ways to be like, hey, or talking to the project and be like, hey, my company's like super down for me to contribute if we can ever like name somewhere at some point. And like figuring out with the project maintainers what that looks like or how. Sometimes companies are fine if it's just like you're out there doing it, but other times companies are not okay with that. They need like something more, and sometimes also companies are the inverse of that, where they don't want to be associated with anything because their like legal team doesn't really understand how open source works, and thinks it's like a risk to the business rather than like providing value. And so like figuring it out in that framework is a little bit more challenging, but yeah, it's really use case based. And individual. So
yeah, that's figuring out how to do it is hard, and finding the time, and like at some point something else is going to take priority all the time.
I mean, my ability to contribute to Node has just gone down just because I don't have time and energy. I could make time, but like the energy on top of that is a lot. So I just haven't contributed as much, but I'm still contributing, just much less frequently. So
do we have a lot of non-Twilio contributors to Twilio stuff, or is that
not really? And that's pretty typical for open source. Like and you were talking about the robotic stuff earlier. Usually if it's coming from a corporation, unless other companies find it useful. So like Backstage is actually a really good example. We use Backstage at Twilio, and Backstage is a thing that Spotify made to like manage their repos and connect it to like their services and stuff, and like do access control and a bunch of stuff. They made that, and we're like, oh, other people might actually find this useful. We're going to open source it and then put it in the CNCF, so the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And so it's in there now. I think it's past incubation, and it's like a pretty relatively widely used project. I think we have a couple instances of it at Twilio actually. And so that's like the thing, is if other people would find it useful for what they're doing, people will potentially care and contribute. But if it's like, your SDK or something like that, it's like people will come fix bugs that they encounter, but also your stuff has to be set up in a way that they can do that. And sometimes it's not. And that's okay. And like, I think that's a fine state for open source to be in. Open source isn't really like one thing. It's many, 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 many flavors. So
cool.
Yeah,
I actually saw one recently with there was an issue with CLI, Twilio CLI, and somebody identified it, and then somebody external to Twilio fixed it. It was like a one-line fix. It was pretty simple.
Nice.
And that was cool to see.
Nice.
Yeah, it's cool to see like the different kind of the corporate version of open source, and even just like the priorities and value sets. No, yeah, this was so good. We have other questions, but you'll just come back on.
Maybe we got Tierney part 2.
Yeah, Tierney part 2. Soon come. But Tierney, this was great. Thank you so much. It was so great kind of getting to learn more about you, kind of getting to learn more about just all things open source. And I just, you're great. You're awesome.
Thank you. You too. Both of you.
So like, I just feel like y'all chat have gotten a chance to kind of experience what we experience. We have our random DevNet events. So thank you so much, Tierney, for joining us. We definitely hope to see you on a future stream. Tierney part 2, soon come.
Looking forward to it.
And
there's only one thing that I was actually sad about today. We did those promo videos back when we had
I was hoping they went out. I was really hoping they went out.
Tierney's wasn't finished. So
next time we got to come
it
back.
was the last one, so that means you need to come back so we can do the video.
Yeah. It was good.
Brent, you got a lot going on. You're good.
Yeah, you're
it was one of my favorites.
I'm glad. It was. I had a fun time with it.
Oh no, that was great. So that is even more reason for you to come back, just so we can roll a promo clip. So
I'm down.
Thank you, Tierney, for joining us. Thank you, Alex, for being here. Thank you, chat. Yep, it is always a pleasure hanging out with y'all. See y'all next week, Tuesday, 2 p.m.
Tuesday, 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all.